when we leave our homes and we try to get into or start our own homes with someone else, our family tends to influence the kind of home we have through various ways. First of all, your family can influence the kind of home you build by some of the values of your family, the values that they've instilled in you, some things that you grew up around that you love and you admire. For some people, it's as simple as, oh, my father usually helps out with the house chore, and I would love that for myself. I would want my husband to do the same. For some, oh, my mother's so nice. She wakes everybody up in the morning, for salah. And before you're done with your salah, probably your bathing water is ready. My mom is this homely kind of person, and I would want my wife to be like that as well. So there are some values within your family that are positive values that you want for yourself, and you anticipate that. But it's a good thing, and it can influence your marriage. However, for you to really benefit from that, that's where communication comes to play. Okay? Communicating your wants, those things that you like and you would want your spouse to do for you. Aside communication, it will also be lovely if you do your background check thoroughly. Are we together? This is the part where a lot of us tend to ignore. Once we see a lady, she's beautiful, oh, this lady is, so mashallah, she's religious and all of that, I want to marry her. And the sister, oh, this brother, he's so handsome, Gatalariga Kenshi, he smells so nice, he's so neat, in appearance, and you know what? He's a smooth talker, I would like to marry him. It goes beyond the face value. You also need to dig deep into the kind of family they come from. What are their family values? What are those values that you cherish? What are those values in their family that aligns with your own family? Sometimes you find huge conflicts over something as simple as the bedroom. She wants them to share a bedroom. He comes from a family where his father's apartment is different, his mother's own is different, his stepmother's own is different, It's the same compound, but the father is on his own, he has his own empire, and the mother has her own, apartment. While she came from a family where the mother and the father share a room, and that's what she wants for herself. And then you come into the marriage and it's like, where's our room? And it's like, no, that's your room, this is my room. And it becomes an issue very early. It sounds so petty, but it causes a lot of, misunderstanding. So that's where it's very, very important for you to dig deep. Not just you, even your parents, your walis, they need to dig deep and know what are the values of the other family before you step into that marriage. Are we together? So those positive values that you love and would want to carry on in your family, you sit down and discuss it with your spouse. I would want this, I would want that. Are we together? So those kind of things can influence your own marriage, as I said. But remember, communication is key. The second way in which your family can influence your marriage is by the negative values of your families. There are some things about your own parents, your own family that you came from, that you personally would not want to carry on in your own life. You want it to end with that generation. You don't want to see that happening in yours. For some, it's as simple as nagging. You have a nagging mother, and you don't want a nagging wife. Are we together? For others, it's just, this lack of care, show of affection. Are we together? You're this manly man who would not show affection. Or better still, there are some sisters who don't have apology in their books at all. They grew up never seeing their mother telling their father she's sorry when the father does something. I mean, when she does something wrong to the father, and vice versa. Hence, for her, she doesn't really have to say sorry. It's a negative value that she's picking up, or she has picked up, and she brought it to your family, the one that you've started. Or he brings his own baggage as well. And for those kind of things, it usually ends up in a lot of fight. There's something as simple as having a discussion, and then she starts nagging, and it's like, you're nagging me just like my mother. And she has a background gist that your father added a wife because your mother was always nagging him. And now you are telling her, you're nagging me just like my mother used to nag my father. And the next is like, oh, okay, so you want to get married. Who is she? Where is she? When are you getting married? You know? And she begins to, it's like, hey, come, did I tell you I want to get married? Before you know, there's a heated argument. And things begin to turn upside down. For some, the way that they talk in their family, they don't have a good manner of approach. They say things without, caring how the other person will feel. And when they do so, and you try to complain, you hear things like, hey, come, this is how I was brought up. It's a negative value, but he or she feels this is how I was brought up. This is the way we run things in our home. You understand? And nobody, I mean, they all lived in peace. Their parents lived in peace. So why shouldn't you tolerate me for that? If you have a certain value that is somewhat negative, or your spouse complains about it, it is worthy of sitting down and reevaluating. Are those values acceptable Islamically? For starters, are we together? Are they values that Islam does not really accept? If they are, then they are worthy of change. Are we together? Are there values that could cause hurt? Because sometimes you may feel it's a value and there's nothing wrong there, but if it's causing your other half pain, it's worthy of, taking some steps back. Because the truth is, they say a happy wife, a happy home. Go. So also a happy husband, a happy home. Because if your husband is not happy, you will also not be happy. Because he may do things that would hurt you. He may do things that you may not find so appealing. So, your family can influence your marriage negatively by some of their negative values that you had picked up and you came to the your own home with. And as I said, what you need to do in such cases is sit down and have a deep reflection. These are the things that my spouse complains about. They are things that I learned from home. However, my spouse is not happy each time I exhibit it. What do I need to do differently? If I stop it, first of all, I would get a reward from Allah because I'm being nice to my spouse. I stopped something that is within me just to please my spouse. Remember, Rasul said the best amongst you is the one who is best to his family, right? And don't think because Rasul is a male, it goes across the two. Okay? So you want to be nice to your own spouse for the sake of Allah. And of course, it's easy for people to reciprocate acts of kindness. So if you're kind enough to leave some of those things, fi sabilillah, and of course to please your spouse, you would find more peace in your home. So we spoke about the first way your family can influence your marriage in a positive way, in terms of your positive values, right? The second we spoke about are the negative values that could actually cause a lot of crisis in your homes. You need to reevaluate that. And get rid of that kind of, um, behaviors or values and imbibe some new ones, like compassion, of course, and some other great values. The third way through which your family can influence your marriage is by interference. That is when they come and try to run your home. Are we together? There are cases where you find some married people talking about, oh, my father-in-law said he can actually get me out of that house and marry a new wife for his son. You find cases where, mother-in-law, when will you give birth? How is that her business? Are we together? Or better still, why is my son growing thin? Since he married you, the guy is just growing thin. You are just filling the place. You didn't give birth. Blah, 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 blah. Long story. You understand? You would find that your family are interfering in your marriage. And depending on the level of maturity of your spouse and yourself, you may have issues. You find yourself disliking your spouse over something that his or her family members did to you. Are we together? So, in such instances, there needs to be a boundary. Are we together? There needs to be a boundary. You do not allow your family to disrespect your spouse, be it the male or the female. And when we're talking about not having children, I know of one very close to my family. It was the mother and father of the sister that were complaining that their daughter was not pregnant. And they will book a doctor's appointment and ask the husband to go to the hospital. They want to be sure that he is okay. They will book the appointment. He will go, they will take specimens from him and run tests on him, but he will not even see the results. Are we together? The results will go to his in-laws' house. Yes. So don't think that it's only the sisters that are being terrorized about not, like having children. Even the brothers are. And this happened somewhere within my own family, so I know. Are we together? So brothers also get the kind of treatment that some sisters get. And you can imagine if he isn't that patient, he may even send their daughter back home. Because you're invading his privacy, you understand? And his fundamental human right. How can you book a doctor's appointment and I go and be, they harass me for all sort of specimen and I can't even see the results. But one thing he said was, for the fact that they are quiet about it, he wants to believe that the results came out positive, that he's fine. So probably that's why they are not harassing him. So he doesn't even know the results. So when you find your family interfering in marriages, you need to draw a boundary respectfully. Because it's not for you to just go and start screaming, Mama, leave my wife alone. Why? She could curse you. Are we together? You find a diplomatic way to create boundaries. And for some of us that intend to get married and stay in the family house, and your brothers and sisters can, just come crashing into the home however they like, her space. Islamically, you're supposed to provide for her minimum. She should have her own bathroom. She should have her own kitchen, and she should have her own bedroom. Her privacy. Those three. Are we together? And of course, she has the right to allow whoever she deems fit to come in. I mean, what I mean by that is you have to seek permission before you actually come into her home. And that's something that we need to make our brothers and sisters also understand if we're in such kind of setting. It's not easy. It's not an easy task. because we tend to hold on firmly to our cultural values. But the number one value is our Islamic value. That's our core value. And that's the value we need to hold on to. Whatever cultural value that contradicts our Islamic value, we are to do away with it, right? And stick with those which are in line with our Islamic values. So family can interfere, learn to draw boundaries. Are we together? Now, the fourth way in which your family can influence your marriage is when you invite them. Are we together? In most cases, some couple make it a point of duty on their very first night to have a long discussion to plan their lives together. Are we together? What to do, what not to do, in cases where there are conflicts, how do we resolve them? In some instances, you may find that some issues are beyond the two of you. Sometimes it could get that ugly, that the two of you cannot sit down and resolve it, and you would need a third party. You shouldn't wait till when it happens to begin to create that third party. You could, on the very first night, agree, when we have some issues in the future that you and I cannot resolve, who should we call upon to help us mediate the issue? As at that time, you're happy. Are we together? You're happy, so your full, like your full concentration is there. You're very, you're in a very sound state of mind. Then you begin to think, okay, from your own family, who are those sensible people who they would keep sentiments aside and do it the Islamic way. You understand? You draw up a list and pick probably one or two from each family. From my family, I know Auntie Winey and Uncle Winey. They are, she's very religious. She would tell you the truth even when you're wrong, as in, like, no matter how close you are to her, no matter how close you are to her, she will tell you if you're wrong and all of that. Okay, she should be there. Have that at the back of your mind, right from the beginning. Even though for me, one thing I did with my husband was, we didn't want family to be the one that would resolve our issues if they get out of hand. Instead, it was, okay, let's get scholars from our community who are neither related to me nor you, neutral ground, and they are scholars, Muslims. They know the teachings and they would guide us accordingly. And we came up with a list of scholars in which, if the matter pass Gary, water pass Gary, these are the people we would call. And we have those lists. And we even balance the lists, male and female scholar. Because sometimes you may find their masculinity or the femininity would come into play. So we had that list. So in terms of family, you could also have a list of people within your family. It mustn't be your mother or your father. Quite frankly, sometimes we know when you sit down, in your own comfort, on your own, because we don't come out to say things about our families now, do we? But when you sit in your comfort, you know whether or not your mother will be very good at resolving issues. You know whether or not your father will be the best candidate. If you want to be frank to yourself, you know. So have that frank conversation. Select those people who you know are truthful and will tell you the truth, and that they are very knowledgeable indeed, to help you maneuver the issue, whatever the issue may be. These folks, you trust them that they will provide solution. Have that list right from the very onset. And you find that when there are crises, you know who to call. Some go as far as, okay, when we have our first baby, who's going to come and assist? Is it your mother? Is it my mother? Is it one uncle, one aunt, you know? They make all of such arrangements. When are we going to be needing somebody to come? Because sometimes it's not only when there's crisis, like when you have issues. Sometimes you just need assistance. Who to go to? Who to call? When should my sister come around and stay? For how long should they stay? All of those things influence marriages. Because quite frankly, you have some families where their cultural value is, you know what, when you get married, as a son-in-law of this house, you must take a child from our family because the child will follow, our daughter, and you raise that child. Are we together? Guess here we need to do binchike. Like seriously, before you go in there, you don't want some kind of surprises. What are they into? If it's something that you can't put up with, brother, find a wife in another house. Or sister, another brother will come. Are we together? Don't even think for once. Sometimes we tell ourselves, you know what? I don't like it too, but we'll manage. I don't like it too, but we'll manage. My dear, when stress comes, the stress of being married and some other things, stress of life, hustle, income issues, and some other things come, that's when you would see it very clearly, like, come, waiting with yourself, and you begin to grow angry for no good reason. It's something that you already know. That's why I said for no good reason. You're well aware, but you told yourself you will manage. Are we together? If it is something you cannot live with, leave that management alone. There are things that you know deep within yourself. I cannot live with this thing. Don't come and start telling yourself, I will change him or I'll change her. There's no such thing. You can influence a person to change. And as it is said, it's an influence. The person may pick it, the person may reject it. Are we together? So there's a 50-50 chance. So you have to be sure that these things that you have found for yourself within that family, those values, are they values that you can tolerate? You can compromise. You understand? Okay, I can compromise. At least there's this and there's that and there's that. Alhamdulillah. For this, I can overlook it. Are we together? So it is very, very important, as I said, to communicate. 1, 2, do your investigations. 3, always put Allah first. Are we together? Whatever decision you're coming up with, put Allah first. I would like to pause a little so that if there are questions around this family influence, we trash it before we move into parenting itself. So the floor is open for questions, please. If you have any questions, you have any concerns around family influence, you could go ahead and ask.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. I think one of the ways I just learned about family influencing marriages, things about, it has to do with character, their morals, while bringing you up. So they tend to inculcate some things into you, which you want to build on or you want to cut off. Thank you.
So some values that you don't want to carry to your home and some values that you definitely want to build on. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. What I've learned about the family influence is that there are some positive values and negative values that influence marriage, and there's also interference and also invitation of that. And
Talked about positive, negative, interference, invitation. So if it is a positive value, what are you to do?
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. If it is a positive value, then you need to like put it into action in your family, in your marital home. If it is a negative, then you just have to like go away with them and use the positive ones.
So if it is a positive value, you can carry on with it. Negative ones, you do away with it. Okay, in terms of interference, what do you do?
Create boundaries.
You create boundaries in terms of interference. And in terms of invitation, when do you invite them to come in and be of help in terms of invitation?
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. In terms of invitation, that's when if there are problems, you should know when to invite them and the kind of people to invite. You select from your families the kind of people, and if it is not going to be from the family, you select scholars that are good in the deen to interfere with the family issues.
Okay. So when should you make that decision of who to invite? I think let us give us that.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. You said or shall I say, among the first days of your being together, then you just fix a date that you are comfortable, you know, you are very free with each other, then you are very happy. You either choose from your family or scholars, as she has said.
So the best time to choose those who you will invite into your marriage to either come as to help you solve your problems. The best time to select them is when you are happy. And in most cases, the best time is the very first night of your marriage. All right. So are there any questions before I move into parenting? No questions? Okay.
The aspect of positive and negative value, you said if it does not go against the religion. So there are some families that maybe while greeting someone, they kneel down to greet. And so there are some people that have the perception that it's wrong to do that. So what if someone got married into that family? What should someone do?
Okay. You are getting married into a family. The family you're getting married into like to kneel as a form of respect. Your own value, you do not do such things, right? Because you believe Islamically it is wrong, right? For me, what I find works for me is as simple as communication, okay? Before you even come into the family, the man must have announced, this person is from so-so family. In their family, they do not kneel. Are we together? And that's the part where, when I was talking about, you need to investigate thoroughly before you get married. They must have done their own investigation. If they did it well, they will know that people from your family do not kneel. Are we together? And if they're comfortable with that, they will push it. They'll, you know, let's go ahead with the marriage. If it is not so much of a deal breaker. Are we together? And when you come and you do not kneel, they will not take it as a sign of disrespect because they already know that your family, that's how things go. Are we together? I am Nupe, and we usually kneel to greet. My husband's family, they are mixed, Gwari and Yoruba. Yoruba, of course, they want the Dobale and kneeling as well. But the family my husband comes from, the youngest can call the oldest by their name. No yaya, nothing. In my family, you dare not do it though. It will not work. Are we together? You must put that yaya, whether you like it or not. You get. What I did was my own value from my own home is to call those who are elderly yaya. But they don't call themselves yaya. The simple thing I did was uncle, auntie. Because yes, I came in single, but then I would have children. My children will grow up calling them uncle, Abby. So whenever I want to call their name, I add uncle or auntie, and that helps to solve the problem. In the very early days of my marriage, I cooked and then I served my husband's dish. The soup caused the problem. My guy said I was wasting soup. Yes. Why? Because I dished the soup the way we usually do in my home. Are we together? But for them, they don't usually use much soup. You get? They just want a lot of meat in there and a little soup, and they will find their way with the two. And for me, we use a lot of soup. So the very first few days was an issue. He said I was wasting soup, and I felt hot by that. Then it's as simple as, okay, he doesn't want much soup. Fine, I reduce his own soup, right? And me, I take it the way that I want. Even though we eat together, you understand? When he's done with his business, I go to the pots and add some more. Are we together? Now, fast track. After a couple of months, there was a day he was ready to eat, I wasn't ready to eat. And I dished his food. And along the line, he's like, babe, you don't distinct you. And I was wondering, like, what happened? He said, see the soup where you put for me. The thing don't finish. And I was like, you said the soup, he said, habamana. Why you give me this kind super sweet? You give me this small thing. I beg, add. As I'm talking to you right now, his own quantity of soup is exactly the way that I usually, like dish my soup in my father's house. He has now imbibed my own culture. I didn't force him into it. It's more or less of an influence. He fell in love with the soup and wanted more and more and more till, So it's all about understanding each other. If you understand each other very well and you understand the values of the other family, you would know how to maneuver your way. And of course, if they had also done their own background check, they would also know your own way. And with a little compromise here and there, you will find a headway. Does that answer your question? Okay. Any other question before we move on to parenting? With regards to family influence? Any question? So, should we move to parenting now? Okay.